Hello friends, welcome to Step Up Academy. So continuing with our geography optional paper 1 discussion, I think I have covered till question number 7C. So today we are going to look into the last set of questions, that is question from 8A to 8C. Okay. Okay. So give geographical account of distribution of world population. So I have said that the MPSC was conducting this optional paper for the first time in descriptive pattern. MPSC was in descriptive pattern for the first time. So most of the question in optional paper they have asked that is geographical account. Everywhere they have mentioned, most of the places they have mentioned geographical account. So give geographical account of distribution of world population. So whenever you get such term, you have to focus on two things. First thing is you should be including geographers names, and along with that you should be including different geographical places. Okay, so if you talk about the distribution of world population, so the world population that is distributed across the surface of the earth, it is highly uneven, and the major factors that are controlling this distribution of the population, just mention those factors in the introduction itself. So we know that the geographical distribution of world population is uneven mainly because of the physical features that we observe on the surface of the earth. We have diverse physical features, we have plains, we have mountains, we have plateaus. Okay, so because of that there is uneven distribution of population. So first is the physical, then the second factor responsible for uneven distribution of population, that is the historical factors. Okay, so if you look back into the history, we have most of the civilizations getting developed around some fertile plain areas of some river valleys. For example, if I talk about the Indus Valley civilization, okay, so it developed around the Indus River. So then later on we came across the civilization along the plains of the Ganga River. So the historical factor has also played a significant role in distribution of the world population. Then recently there are some other factors which are playing a crucial role in distribution of world population. Those recent factors are the economic activities. If I talk about this river valleys as well, the main economic activity over there was agriculture. So that was also an economic activity. So physical factor has played a significant role, historical factor has played a significant role, then recently economic factors are playing a significant role in distribution of the population. For example, nowadays we find most of the people shifting towards the urban areas. That is the dominant economic activities over there. Then second, if I talk about the technological changes, now there are some areas which are desert areas, but they are technologically highly developed. For example, the Gulf states, okay, example UAE. Now technologically it has become quite advanced, and most of the people, despite being desert, the availability of resources is less, but it is playing a significant role in distribution of the population. So you can simply mention the important factors of distribution of population in the introduction itself, then give a geographical account. So write a little bit about concept of distribution of population. Okay, so then I have always said that you should be including some geographer's name. Okay, so it refers to what is geography, population distribution. It is nothing but the spatial arrangement of human population on the surface of the earth depending upon various factors, that is physical environmental factors, like climate, you can talk about, okay, then vegetation and all, okay, forest regions and all, then density of the population. Some places the density of the population is very high, some places the density of the population is very less, sparsely populated. For example, in India, if I talk about Arunachal Pradesh, then habitation across the continents and regions. Then there are some geographers which have talked about specific relation between distribution of population and the factors, and one among them is very important. That geographer name is George B. Cressy. Okay, now some of you people might be like, yaar ye kahan se naam leke aaye sir. ठीक है. So I have always had a habit while preparing my geography optional. I always had a habit of googling some geographer's name, because the geographer's name that we have in our syllabus, that is more or less वो भी 40-50 geographer ज़्यादा ही हो गए, 50-55 geographers name, but sometimes those names even become insufficient. But you can simply Google some geographers, other geographers name, you'll get the information. Now by reading the question, I found that there is a relation between the environmental factors or the factors of distribution of population. There has to be some relation. So I just Googled it around for this geographer name, and I found this person name. So George B. Cressy, he emphasized that the settlement of human population is highly related with the physical environment. So just mention about it in one line and jump next forward. Then the Earth's inhabited surface is broadly divided into two types, that is the acumen and the non-acumen. Acumen is the areas or the regions which are inhabited by the people, and non-acumen are those areas which are sparsely populated or uninhabited by the people. And the question is asking about distribution of population. So write some concept about the distribution of population. If you look at the distribution of population around the surface of the Earth, you will see that almost 90% of the population, it is residing in the northern hemisphere, and that too within the 20° and the 60° latitude. That is mostly in the temperate regions. For example, if I talk about India, India is the most of the population which is present Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, we have West Bengal, we have, then just next to it we have an important country that is our neighbor Bangladesh. Okay, so then here we have Pakistan. Then carrying forward towards the East Asia, this entire belt is a highly populated, densely populated region. Okay, and this area is also densely populated region, not just of India but of Asia, but also of the world. So most of the population that we find across the world, almost 90% lies within the northern hemisphere, and among that as well in 20 and 60° northern latitudes. Okay, so after mentioning this, you can directly jump into the mentioning about the geographical distribution. Do not forget to draw the map. Okay, do not forget to draw the map, and then try to mention about, give a brief description about different regions. The first region, if I talk about the Asia population cluster, Asia population cluster can be divided into some zones. We have South and Southeast Asia, we have East Asia, which have a little bit of different distribution of population. Among these, if I talk about South Asia and Southeast Asia, this is the most densely populated area or region of the world. Here we find the highest population zone area in this particular belt. Okay, we have Pakistan, then we have India, then we have Bangladesh, and then also we have some Southeast Asian nations which are highly populated. Okay, and here the population that is governed, the major factor that is governing the distribution or location of high population over here, that is the presence of the river valleys, and the important economic activity associated with it, that is the agricultural activity. So because of the high, you can say, agricultural activity in this South Asia and Southeast Asia belt, we find high density and high concentration of population in the world. In fact, the largest populated country, that is India, present in this area. Then second zone that we have, that is the East Asia. East Asia, if I talk about the eastern part of China, you people might be aware of that almost 70-80% of the China's population live on the eastern side, because western side of China is mostly desert area. So eastern side along the coast, most of the population is residing. Then next to it we have Japan as well. No doubt the population in Japan is now declining. In South Korea the population is declining, but once upon a time they were also, the coastal belts of these areas, they are highly populated, they are densely populated. So we find large concentration of population in China, then South Korea and Japan, mostly in the coastal areas. Here the dominant factor which is contributing to the high concentration of population, that is, here also we have the Yellow River, Hongho River and all. Okay, then the Japan and all, if I talk about here, along with the agriculture in the ancient past, the industrialization has also played a key role in large concentration of population. If I talk about interior parts of this Japan and all, mostly it is a volcanic mountainous area. So interior parts, it's sparsely populated, but coastal area is densely populated. So population distribution के बारे में बोल रहे हैं, sparsely populated भी याद रखना, ऐसा नहीं कि सिर्फ जहाँ पे ज़्यादा concentrated population है सिर्फ उसके बारे में लिख रहे हैं. Okay, so east side we have China, we have Japan, South Korea. Then most of the coastal areas are densely populated, and the factors governing this area of high density of population, China we know the entire industrial sector is lying on the east coast. Then Japan, industrial sector, South Korea, industrial sector, because of which there is high urbanization and there is high population concentration. Hong Kong वगैरह तो पूछो ही मत, ठीक है. So two sections we have in Asia, East Asia and South and Southeast Asia. Then second section that we have, that is the European Population Center. So if I talk about European Population Center, most of the population concentrated on the western side of the Europe, UK, France, Germany, most of the Netherlands, most of the population is concentrated in this belt. Here the major dominant factor of high population concentration in this area, that is the industrialization and urbanization. Industrialization, urbanization, and along with that urbanization, I'll talk about transportation network. Whereas in Asia, the population is concentrated mainly because of the agricultural activities, whereas in Europe, the population is concentrated mostly in these areas because of the industrial revolution, because of these urbanization and transportation networks. So just mention these factors as well, so that it gives the evaluator or the examiner a holistic view that you are talking about holistic population distribution, also the factors responsible for it. Then recently, because of extreme migration from Europe, from now also from Asia, there have been a large population concentration in America as well, North America. Okay. On the northeastern coast of America and the southeastern coast of Canada, we find large population concentration over there. Here, the major factor dominating for the high population in these areas, that is the migration. Migration in the, you can say, industrial revolution period, phase 1, most of the people from Europe migrated to USA or the Americas, okay, Canada and USA. Then there was also slave trade and all. People were carried from Africa, so plantation ke liye वगैरह, Mexico and all. So large concentration of population has been taken place over there. The major factor here that has contributed to large population, that is the migration. First, there was migration. Then second, for the concentration, that is the availability of good education facilities, job opportunities and technological advancement. Recently, technological advancements, for example, USA, most of the people highly technologically advanced nation. So most of the people migrating to those countries for better jobs and better technological or standard of life. Okay. Then there are some regions, for example, there is this Boswash megalopolis. Do not forget to put in such heavy words, geography heavy words. Boswash megalopolis, that is Boston and Washington industrial belt. Here we find large population concentration. Then there are some emerging population clusters, especially in Africa and South America. In Africa, if I talk about, then there is the, you can say, talk about the western side of Africa, some regions, coastal belts, there are delta areas where the population is increasing at a rapid pace because of advancement in the medical facilities. Okay, demographic transition theory, because of the advancement in medical facilities, we find high birth rate, increasing birth rate over here, increasing population over here. Then Nile Delta, the population concentration is high over there. Then the eastern coast of Africa, we have Tanzania, then Nigeria, where there are highlands that are present. Here we find increasing population present, large concentration of population present over here. Then if I talk about the South America, where also we find the emerging population clusters. In South America, most of the population that is concentrated, it is concentrated along the east coast of South America. Okay, if I talk about the central part of South America, mostly there is this Amazon forests are there, equatorial rainforests are present over there. So there is sparse population. Then if I talk about the western side of South America, we have Atacama Desert, which is the driest place. Then we have the Andes mountain ranges, okay, tall mountain ranges. So there the population is very sparse. Whereas if I talk about South America, the major population clusters that are forming along the east coast of the South America. So we have Brazil and all, okay? We have Argentina, so Buenos Aires and all the capitals of these nations, they are developing rapidly. Okay, so do not forget to mention about the emerging. Then there are some sparsely populated regions of the world, the desert areas, the Sahara Desert you can talk about, the Arabian Desert you can talk about. Then there are polar areas, the Greenland, the Arctic region and the Antarctic region, then less population. Mountainous region, for example, the Himalayas, the Alps, the Rockies and the Andes, less population. Dense equatorial forest, we have the Congo Basin where there is dense equatorial forest, we have the Amazon Basin, dense equatorial forest, we find less population present over here. The major question was asking about the population distribution. ठीक है, तो उसके बारे में ज़्यादा लिख लेना. And if you have time, if time permits, you can also talk about the factors responsible for population distribution. तो कुछ factors वगैरह है, physical and environmental factors, economic factors, but you can mention examples as well, historical and cultural factors. You can mention these things at the start itself, or you can mention it separately as well. Technological development, for example, the Gulf states. Then political factors also play an important role in population distribution. Okay, now for example, latest example, if I talk about the Indonesia, Jakarta. Okay, Jakarta, which was the initial capital, now since the Jakarta, because of excessive groundwater extraction, since the Jakarta is sinking, the government has come up with a policy of migrating the people from Jakarta to other places, other islands of Indonesia. Okay, no doubt they have also shifted the capital. I think Nusantara hai kuch hoga, theek hai. So political factor also play a significant role in the distribution of population. Not just this factor, not just such factors, but also political. For example, the wars. Okay, the wars which are taking place in the Middle East, they are also responsible for the distribution of population. So there are contemporary trends in population distribution, urbanization, globalization, and the recent wars. They are acting as you can say dynamic factors for shifting or changing the concentration of population across the surface of the earth. Okay, so mention the factors in the introduction. Okay, then give some geographer's name. One geographer name, George B. Cressy, who has talked about the relation of population distribution and the physical factors. Okay, you can mention about him. Then second, draw the map. Then give a list of entire geographical distribution. If you want to add factors, if time permits, you can add the factors, or in the distribution itself, you can write with the help of examples. Conclude your answer and that will be done. Okay. Then next question we have, that is 8B question. Give critical evaluation of population growth theory of Thomas Malthus. ठीक है, so straightforward question पूछा गया है, critical evaluation पूछा गया है. Do not directly go on to write the criticism. First, write something positive about the population growth theory of Malthus. Okay. So if I talk about Malthus proposed the population growth theory in way back in 1798, explaining the imbalance between the population and the availability of resources. So write some concept, write some brief about Malthus theory. Here I have, since it is model answer, here I have put in a lot of information, but just write in brief of what he was talking about, some positive checks, some negative checks, then how the population is growing and how the resources are growing. Okay, so he talked about that the population is growing in a geometric progression, 1 to doubling, every time it is doubling, 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, whereas the resources, availability of the resources, they are growing in arithmetic progression, that is linear progression, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so as a result of which, because of this, what happens over a period of time, the population increases and the availability of resources decreases, as a result of which there are crises developed across the world. Okay, so this was the basic, you can say, concept of Malthus, and he talked about the Malthusian trap or the Malthusian catastrophe, where the population increases abruptly, whereas the available resources are less. As a result of which, what happens? Famine increases because of that, poverty increases, and that affects the population. Okay. So main features were that the population growth always outpaces the food supply. He talked about some positive checks in the nature that there are, because he said that there is a natural human tendency for humans for reproduction. So biologically we are going to reproduce and increase the population, but naturally there will be some positive checks that will be controlling the growth of the population. So the natural checks, positive checks that you talked about, that is the famine will be there because there will be less resources, there will be famine, sometimes there will be floods, sometimes there will be droughts. Okay, sometimes there will be this wars created because of the less resources. For example, what we are seeing now. Okay, people are fighting for oil resources, people are fighting for critical minerals. Okay, countries, not people, countries are fighting. So that is because of the wars. Then there are also natural disasters. For example, COVID-19, it was a, ठीक है, लोग बोलते हैं चाइना ने क्रिएट किया था, but epidemics, pandemics, these are what? These are positive checks which will control the population naturally. So this was talked about by Malthus. Then he also said that there are some preventive checks when there are people restrain their you can say marriage. Okay, now for example, I am 36, I am still single, so I was restraining my marriage so that I'll clear the UPSC और फिर उसके बाद शादी विधि वगैरह देख लेंगे. So people preventive checks that late marriages are taking place. Then some people are practicing celibacy. ठीक है, are some of our leaders, ठीक है, they are still single, celibacy, single but celibacy, ठीक है, moral restraint and self discipline. So these are some moral restraints which are utilized by people, which was talked about by Malthus. So he was a clergyman, he was talked about such moral restraint, preventive checks, which also controls the population. Okay, then he also talked about the concept of carrying capacity, okay, wherein not explicitly, but he said that indirectly emphasized that every region possesses a limited carrying capacity which is determined by the available resources. Then either you can write all these things in detailed statements, but I would suggest they have asked critical evaluation, so just write preventive checks, moral restraint, and just write these keywords. Then go on to write the critical evaluation which has been actually asked. So first of all, underestimation of the technological progress. So he said that the resources, that is basically he was talking about the food resources. The food resources that are available, there is limitations. Okay, so he said that population is growing in geometric progression, whereas food resources are growing in arithmetic. But he did not talk about the technological progress. Nowadays we have green revolution, we are producing high yielding variety of seeds, as a result of which the crop production has increased significantly. For example, if I talk about India, in India, in FCI godowns, the wheat and rice quantity that has been stored, it is so much that it can last for next 2 years. That means even if you are not producing wheat and rice for next 2 years, even a single grain if you are not producing for next 2 years, still we have sufficient quantity to suffice the need of the entire nation. That much storage we have. And the population of India is 1.45 billion. Okay, so just imagine the technological, it is mainly because of the technology, hiding variety seed, mainly because of the technological progress. So he didn't talk about this. So this was the main criticism of the Malthusian theory. Then second, that incorrect assumption regarding food production, just now as I've said, that food increases only arithmetically. He was talking that only arithmetically, but no, it can be increased because of the, you can say, by international trade as well, market as well. For example, if the moment the cost of the onion prices shoots up in India, inflation zyada ho raha hai, shoots up in India, that means the availability of onions is less in India. So what we do, we immediately import pulses, we immediately import. Okay, majority of the population in India is vegetarian. For proteins we require pulses, so we import pulses from African countries, we import pulses from Canada. So immediate availability we are ensuring so that the population does not suffer because of the food scarcity. Okay, so he didn't talk about this as well. Then basically he gave the theory in 1798. So at that time the transportation, ये सब चीजें इतना था भी नहीं international, but on bulk level इतना था भी नहीं. But anyways, criticize करना था तो कर ही लेते. Now failure to anticipate demographic transition. Okay, now he said that the population is growing in a geometric progression. It is doubling. He said that almost after 25 years, the population becomes double. But by demographic transition theory, we have seen that as the country progresses, as the nation progresses, as the lifestyle of the people progresses, people tend to produce less children because they want to improve their standard of living. For example, Japan, what we see, there is negative fertility rate. Then South Korea, Italy, most of the developed nations, what we see now, the fertility rate there, over there, they have declined to a great level. Then neglect of resource distribution. Okay. Then he talked about that there will be wars, there will be famine because of the less availability of resources. But nowadays what happens that for example our Food Security Act, okay, our Food Security Act, under which we are providing rationed you can say grains to the poor people, almost 80 crore of the poor people, we are providing this. So neglect of resource distribution. So he didn't talk about the resource distribution at all. Okay, then Karl Marx criticized Malthus by arguing that capitalism and unequal ownership of the resources is the main reason for famine or population, you can say poverty rather than population growth itself. Then Amartya Sen also criticized that, emphasized that famines occur because of the failure of food entitlement and the failure of the distribution system. So in India, it is mainly because of the failure of the food distribution system, that is we are lacking in the, you can say, the hunger index. Hunger index में हमारा 100 से भी ज़्यादा rank आता है, because it is because of the failure of the system. But we have sufficient availability, as I said just now, कि 2 साल तक बिना एक दाना भी अनाज उगाए हम इंडिया रह सकता है. ठीक है. Then overemphasis on moral restraint. So he gave, since he was a clergyman, he gave more emphasis on moral restraint, celibacy practice karo, but he didn't talk about the modern day technologies or modern use things like contraceptives, pills and all, which are used for controlling the birth. Okay. Then unrealistic closed economy assumption. So whatever he was talking about some isolated state, okay, isolated system which was dependent upon whatever is produced in the country itself. He didn't talk about the international trade, okay. So he was talking about some isolated economy. But nowadays, because of globalization, we are a connected world. For example, there was this famines in Afghanistan. Immediately, India sent wheat grains to Afghanistan. We are providing aids. There are different international organizations which are providing food aids to some famine-stricken countries. Okay, so unrealistic closed economy assumption was given by Malthus. Then limited applicability in modern economies. Nowadays, we are seeing a globalized economies wherein we are not just dependent upon the food resources. We are not just simply running after the agriculture resources. Nowadays, people are looking for better services. Okay, service economy has developed significantly in India. Okay, because of which most of the people are migrating towards the urban centers, wherein they are doing some or the other service sector work. Then whereas they are running after services for better income they can easily purchase whatever food they require. Whereas he was talking about only very unique economy wherein people are running only after food and nothing else. Nowadays we are running after jobs, okay? We are running after some kind of work. So but still there are some contemporary relevance of Malthus. So after writing the criticism, सिर्फ वही के वही मत छोड़ना. There are some significance. Nowadays, his theory has evolved into neo-Malthusian perspective because no doubt, to some extent, his theory, his idea is still relevant. Okay, if we go to developing nations in Africa, there and this war-stricken countries where population control is taking place, preventive checks, positive checks because of the wars over there, population is declining in West Asia. Then if you go to Africa, the sub-Saharan Africa, the population is declining over there because of the continuous conflicts going on over there. The epidemics are taking place over there. Ebola वगैरह भी फिर से आ गया है. So because of this, the population checks are taking place. So no doubt, there are some criticism, but still his theory is relevant. There are rapid population growth, food insecurity is taking place, water scarcity, environmental degradation. We are continuously talking about sustainability. Okay. Climate change, declining agricultural land. So no doubt there are some drawbacks with respect to Malthus theory, but still his theory is relevant, specifically mostly in some of the developing nations. So write it on a positive end, and the changing factors like climate change, for example, this year people are talking about ये El Nino का year होने वाला है. There is going to be a significant droughts in India, and India is mostly an agrarian economy. Still we are an agrarian economy. Most of our things are dependent upon agriculture. So as a result of which, there are high chances that some of the people they won't be getting the important resources. ठीक है? So that's about the Malthus theory. ठीक है? Criticism पूछा गया था. Write some brief positive concepts about Malthus theory, then go on to criticize him, and then end again on a positive note through neo-Malthusian theory. Okay, which talks about still relevance but in a modern updated manner. ठीक है? Then 8C, last question. Explain the heartland theory of Harvard Mackinder. Now explain पूछा है. Critically evaluate, comment, payment, कुछ नहीं पूछा है. ठीक है? Criticism कुछ नहीं पूछा है. So simply write whatever he has talked about. ठीक है? But brief में लिखना, 15 मार्क करें. ऐसा नहीं कि पूरी राम कहानी लिख रहे. So Harvard Mackinder proposed his theory in 1904. ठीक है? Explaining the global political dynamics. He presented his theory in the paper through the geographical pivot of history in 1904. And later on, he immediately modified after World War I. जैसे ही World War I हुआ, he started realizing some things, and he updated his theory in democratic ideals and reality in 1990. So, if I talk about Harvard Mackinder theory, the basic thing that he talked about, that he said that the geographical area determines the geopolitics of the world. Whichever country is controlling a specific geographical pivot, that country will determine the control or will rule the entire world. Okay, so what he did is that he structured the heartland theory into 3 zones. He said that the heartland or the pivot area, first of all, that includes the heartland area, it includes the area of Central Asia and the part which is opening of Asia and Eurasia, which is opening towards the Arctic region. Here he said that this entire landmass is inaccessible to the naval powers. He gave the theory in 1904 till 1919, which was World War One, and during that time the naval powers were playing a crucial role. So if we talk about the entire world was you can say under colonial imperialism. ठीक है, France was you can say France was governing some countries, UK was governing some countries, Spain, Portugal, even they were governing some of the places around the world. So they were able to govern these places around the world because of their dominant naval power. Okay, but the central part of Asia or Eurasia, the central part of Eurasia, this wasn't governed by anyone. This was acting as a fortress. Why this was acting as a fortress? Because this area was geographically protected. On the northern side there was Arctic region which was completely frozen, 100 साल पहले की बात है, which was completely frozen. Then if I talk about eastern part of this Asia, it is also quite a cold area. Okay, then if I talk about this Central Asia, we have steppe grassland, tall grasslands over there, steppe grassland present hai. Then eastern part of this Europe as well, we find tall steppe grasslands over there. So as a result of which, this central part of Eurasia, it was acting as a natural barrier or a natural fortress, and the naval powers were not able to capture this area. So that's why Mackinder said that this is the heartland. This is the heartland. Because naval power are not able to capture this area, so whosoever controls this area will rule the world. Because this area is also naturally quite good in resources. Quite good in resources. It has a lot of resources, but that time they were untapped resources, but still he was talking about this thing. So first he talked about the heartland. Heartland covers the Eastern Europe, then it covers the Central Asia, and it covers the Siberia. Okay, so he said that it is acting as a pivot area, it is a natural fortress. So you can talk about this: vast natural resources, central geographical location, large population potential. No doubt it is very sparsely populated, but large population potential. But now because of global warming, this entire permafrost region now slowly and steadily it is going to melt, and it is going to provide a good ground for agricultural activity, mining activities. So in near future, after 30-40 years, you will find that this area will definitely be highly densely populated. So large population potential and relative protection from naval attack. Naval attack which was dominant, so protected from the naval attack. Then he talked about second region surrounding this area, that is the inner or the marginal crescent. The marginal crescent covered the Western Europe, it covered the northern part of you can say it covered the Middle East or West Asia, it covered some northern part of Africa as well. Okay, so this region is represented by densely population and economically active coastal areas. So this area, the inner crescent, was highly active region because most of the you can say the naval powers, they were located over here. Most of the economic activities were taking place in this orange zone. Okay, so inner crescent, Western Europe, Middle East, South Asia and East Asia. Okay, so the people which are surrounding the heartland, they will be highly active. They will be trying to you can say control the heartland. Then the outer crescent he talked about, there is the outer or the insular crescent, that is the maritime power such as the UK. Then that time Japan was also quite dominant. Remember, I think around 1905 or 1904, Japan defeated Russia because of a major naval power. So UK, USA, Japan, they formed the outer crescent. Then Mackinder's famous dictum: who rules East Europe will rule the heartland. Who rules East Europe commands the heartland, and who commands the heartland will command the world island. So he talked about the outer crescent as the world island. So outer crescent में world island में आ जाते थे, अफ्रीका आ जाता था, ठीक है, southern tip of Asia वगैरह आ जाता था. And who rules the world island will rule the world. So the famous dictum of Mackinder, do not forget to put it in your answer. Okay, so he said that these areas are quite important, and his theory was quite significant during the First World War. Because First World War, if you look at Germany, Germany was trying to capture, it wasn't extending its power towards you can say USA or what. It was mainly trying to extend its power towards this area, towards the eastern side, towards the Russian side. Okay, so it was mainly trying to have a control over this heartland, and here where it was mostly defeated. Okay, so do remember heartland was quite a significant zone during that period. So its significance, and it shows that some areas are geographically very important. Nowadays we have this choke points which have become quite important. Okay, so significant of his theory, it led to Cold War geopolitics, then Soviet containment policies were there, Eurasian strategic planning, military geography, international relations. All these were affected because of this important theory. Then if I talk about the explain ही बोला है तो थोड़ा बहुत उसका criticism भी लिख देना. If I talk about the criticism, see, he was talking about heartland is very important fortress, geographically fortress. But if you look at the location of the heartland, still there it is very sparsely populated. Most of the area is a permafrost region. So how can you call it as the heartland of the world? Okay, even Russia, which is still having a significant control over the heartland, still its economy is not that significant. Hardly $2 trillion के आसपास उनकी economy है. Still it is not a very, no doubt military power है उनका, but still economically it is not an advanced nation. Eastern part of this Russia is still underdeveloped. Okay, so most of the people still there, they live a nomadic life. Mongolia le lo, still nomadic life. So the theory faced several criticism. Then he said that the heartland was protected by naval power. At that time there was naval power which was very dominant, but with the advancement now we have fighter jets which can easily reach. Now we have drones. So Ukraine and Russia का war चल रहा है, ठीक है, so you can put in over there. So contemporary relevance भी है still of the heartland, ठीक है. But what you can say, drones are there, missiles are there, intercontinental ballistic missiles are there. So even the heartland is not a protected region. Now there is no place on the surface of the earth which we can call it as a heartland, ठीक है. So then his theory was criticized by Alfred Mahan, ठीक है, who criticized that Mackinder underestimated the naval power. He literally underestimated the naval power. Now because of the global warming, the Arctic ice is melting, and suddenly what is happening, most of the nation, China, Japan, Russia, Canada, USA is asking for Greenland. So they are starting to concentrate over there. They are starting to, sooner or later they will be starting fighting for resources in the Arctic region. Okay, so he simply Mackinder simply underestimated, and Mahan said that Mackinder simply underestimated the maritime trade routes. Now the new trade route has opened, northern trade route. Then Nicholas Pikeman, he came up in 1942, he came up with the rimland theory. He said that the heartland is not that important, but the surrounding area to the heartland, that is the inner crescent of Mackinder, that is very important, which he called as the rimland, because it is controlling the naval route, as well as it will be having access to the inner heartland. Okay, so the technological advancement, so as a result of which there were a lot of criticism of his theory, but still the heartland remains relevant, because just now as I said, with increasing global warming, the permafrost region is going to melt, and soon the good land pasture grounds will be available over there. Some pasture grounds will be available, agricultural grounds will be available over there. There might be even mining activities will be taking place for critical minerals or whatever. So, okay, then even the Arctic region will become available for extraction of hydrocarbons and all. So contemporary relevance, we see that heartland is still important. USA and Russia are fighting for control over the Ukraine. In short, indirectly they are fighting for control over the Ukraine. Ukraine is nothing but Ukraine is a part of a heartland, ठीक है, यूरेशिया का ही रीजन है, और यूक्रेन की बात करें तो it is a part of the heartland. So no doubt the Mackinder theory fails in some aspect, but still it is relevant in today's world, because sooner or later this entire land, because of global warming, will be available for resources, and the infrastructure that is being developed, for example the China's Belt and Road Initiative, now the Strait of Hormuz is completely blocked, so naval blockade is taking place. So यहाँ पे naval blockade हुआ, so again role is being played by the Belt and Road Initiative, ठीक है. Then the gas pipelines supplied from Russia to China. So you can simply say that the heartland is still relevant. Control over heartland can become very significant in the near future. So no theory can be directly discarded. You never know what will be important, as a result of which this was asked in this particular examination. ठीक है, so कोई भी theory कभी irrelevant नहीं होती, कभी भी किसी का भी पूछा जा सकता है. अपने लिए तो important है एग्जाम में मार्क्स स्कोर करने के लिए, बाकी कोई लेना देना नहीं है, ठीक है. So explain पूछा था, write in brief, draw the diagram, ठीक है, write some criticism as well and contemporary relevance and conclude your answer. So that's it with respect to optional paper 1. I'll ask our video team to club all these videos and put in one video, or I'll simply ask them to make a playlist of all the geography optional videos and put in one playlist in our YouTube channel. Okay, so I hope this entire session was helpful for you. Soon I'll be starting with geography optional paper 2 of MPSC 2025. Okay. Here mostly I've used English language because most of the aspirants are from English medium. I'll be providing the detailed answers in both English and Marathi medium. Marathi medium मध्ये पण मी तुम्हाला ह्याचे सगळे PDF पण मी upload करून देईन. ठीक आहे, ask the team to upload it on some Telegram channel. I'll be also uploading it on my Telegram channel, both English and Marathi PDF along with the answers. Okay, so I hope this session was fruitful for you. Do practice answer writing. Value addition in your answer writing is very important. जनरल कोई लिखना कोई मतलब नहीं होता है. मैप होना चाहिए सही से, ठीक है, जोग्राफर का नाम होना चाहिए, ठीक है, एंड ऑल दी एस्पेक्ट्स, ऑल दी हिडन एस्पेक्ट्स. ऐसा नहीं है कि भाई एक्सप्लेन लिखा है तो सारा सिर्फ एक्सप्लेन करके छोड़ के चले गए. क्रिटिसिज्म भी लिख दो, कंटेम्प्रेरी रेलेवेंस भी लिख दो, ठीक है. देन एंड देन ओनली योर आंसर बिकम्स होलिस्टिक एंड यू विल स्कोर गुड मार्क्स. ठीक है. Okay, so soon I'll be starting with optional paper 2. Thank you.